Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Kuriboh Yugioh deck profile for the April 2024 ban list. We have to give big respect to Link Kuriboh for, sadly having to face the consequences of the powerhouse that is the Fire King's deck, and because of it, the Kuriboh deck took a hit with one of their best extra deck monsters to make use of in the deck, along with all the many different Kuriboh monsters we have. So decided to update the deck with the changes made with the loss of Link Kuriboh. So, respect for Link Kuriboh in the comment section down below. But let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters for our Kuriboh monsters. We're running 3 copies of Kuriboh. You can also let me know down in the comments which art style you would prefer for Kuriboh and the next card, which is Wing Kuriboh. Do you prefer the Yugimoto one, or I believe this is the manga or game counterpart? But Kuriboh is used for many of the different cards in the deck, whether it be used alongside our go-to setup with our 5-star Twilight, or just being able to be summoned off of Flute of Summoning Kuriboh, used with Multiply, you name it. You have so many different cards in the deck that can be used with Kuriboh, so it's a definite 3 of to set up a good majority of your combos in the deck to begin with. Our other 3 of is Wing Kuriboh, which also has 2 different arts, so depending on which one you prefer, definitely let me know down in the comment section below. I really do like the Winking Kuriboh myself, but this card protects you from when it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard. After this, any battle damage the controller takes this card becomes 0. So while you would take battle damage from Wing Kuriboh, you can prevent any more damage afterwards thanks to this card. And it's another card that can be summoned off of Flute of Summoning Kuriboh and also be used in turn with cards like Berserker Crush to hit for some pretty massive damage against our opponent, and be able to be used with cards like Transcendent Wing to be able to summon out our Wing Kuriboh level 10. And then the other 3 of that I run in the deck for the Kuriboh monsters is Kuriboh. At the end of the battle phase, you can discard this card, then target 1 monster in your graveyard that was destroyed by battle, and set this turn, special summon it. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can banish this card from your graveyard to target any number of Kuriboh monsters in your graveyard and special summon them. So this can just give you back Wing Kuriboh or normal Kuriboh as more of a defense on the field against your opponent. So you can use Kuriboh for protection to summon Wing Kuriboh, and then if they have to destroy Wing Kuriboh, you won't be taking any more damage for the rest of the turn. So Kuriboh just helps to, set up more and more monster presence on the field with this card. So that is it for the 3 ofs. For the next lineup, we'll go over the Kuriboh brothers, running 1 copy of each. So 1 copy of Kuriboh, 1 copy of Kuriboh, Ba, and Be. You really only need the 1 of copies. They can be easily summoned out with our go-to spell card, which is 5-star Twilight. If the only monster you control is level 5 monster, tribute it, and then special summon out Kuriboh and then the 4 Kuriboh brothers from your hand, deck, and or graveyard. So as long as it's not banished, you have a target for each one of them, and each one giving you a different card effect as well. With your Kuriboh, it's always treated as a Kuriboh card as well. So remember that you can discard this card to target a Kuriboh and you control. It gains 1500 attack. You contribute this card in one of each of your Kuriboh, Boo Boo, and Kuriboh, and from your hand or field to add 1 Kuribandit from your deck to your hand or your graveyard to hand, which we are also running just to have another search and setup thanks to this card. Then you can normal summon 1 fiend monster from your hand, being able to summon out the Kuribandit you just searched. Kuriboh, when your another Kuriboh monster is destroyed by battle, you can special summon 1 with 300 attack and 200 defense from your deck, except for Kuriboh. And then you can tribute this card and one of each of the other ones to special summon 1 Kuribabylon from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So Kuriboh gives you access to the other level 5 Kuribabylon, and Kuriboh, when an opponent's monster declares an attack while you control a Kuriboh monster, you can change the attack of all monsters you control to 0, so more of a protection, and negate the attack. With Kuriboh, you could discard 1 trap to target a face of monster your opponent controls, and it loses 1500 attack. So while we don't use Kuriboh as much, the other 3 definitely do help to provide more protection and setup for other monsters in the deck. For the monster mentioned before, 2 copies of Kuribabylon. It gains 300 attack and defense for each Kuriboh monster you control in your graveyard. You can use one of the following effects of Babylon once per turn. If you have more monsters in your graveyard than your opponent, you can special summon this card from your hand. So this helps more also for the fact of you can just set up Kuriboh in the graveyard or the Kuriboh brothers. And during the main phase, you can return this card to the hand. If you do, special summon the 5 Kuriboh brothers, including Kuriboh, from your hand and or graveyard in attack position, making use of those cards that we already searched out for, thanks to 5-star Twilight. So before we go over some other of the Kuriboh cards, I wanted to mention one of the better cards to use for setup with 5-star Twilight, and that is Skilled Brown Magician. Each time a spell card is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When that spell card resolves, maximum 3. You can remove 1 spell counter from this card and activate one of these effects. You can have this card gain 1500 attack and its level increased by 1, which will make it a Skilled Brown Magician level 5 monster to then be tributed off of your 5-star Twilight. Or you can add 1 Kuriboh monster or 1 multiply from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So recycling back one of our go-to Kuriboh cards to then be used with one of our better spells for the token setup as well in the deck. So a definite 3 of, just because it can help very much so for the actual setup for a lot of combos in the deck. I also run 2 copies of Kuriboh for more of a protection and life point gain if your opponent were to attack into this monster. And for the 1-ofs for the rest of the main deck monsters, 1 copy of Wing Kuriboh level 10, since you have to summon it from the deck for the use of Transcendent Wings to better off not minus yourself. You can summon it from the hand as well, but you really only need the 1 copy because that's the one you're going to summon on the field, and then tribute out to then destroy all your opponent's monsters and burn them for some big battle damage. The Curry Bandit to have the search off of the Curry B, and 1 Dystopia, the Despondent. The Wing Kuriboh combo with this card is still one of my favorites to set up in the graveyard to use with Berserker Crush, having your Wing Kuriboh gain attack equal to the monster that we banished from the graveyard, which with 5,000 attack and 5,000 defense, you can use quite well with Dystopia the Despondent. For the spells, running 3 copies of 5-star Twilight. If the only monster you control is one level 5 monster, tribute it to special summon 5 monsters, Kuriboh, Bee, Boo, Be, and Bo, from your hand, deck, and or graveyard, but they cannot be tributed for a tribute summon. But still, that sets up all of the Kuriboh brothers, plus the original Kuriboh, on the field as just resources to use for any of their card effects, or even just extra deck plays. We're also running 3 copies of the Flute of Summoning Kuriboh, just to special summon or add to our hand 1 Kuriboh or Wing Kuriboh. What I like is you can have your Skilled Brown Magician on the field, activate Flute Summoning Kuriboh to add your Kuriboh to your hand, and then have the counter needed for the use with the 5-star Twilight thanks to your Skilled Brown Magician's effect, or use it to add and remove 1 of the spell counters to then add the multiply to have with the Kuriboh we searched off the Flute Summoning Kuriboh also. Speaking of, we're also running 2 copies of Multiply. It's searchable, that's why we're just down to 2, but there are chances you could use multiples of this card, and also just have the option to recycle it back from the graveyard thanks to Skilled Brown Magician. We're also running 2 copies of Detonate, because you can destroy as many Kuriboh and Kuriboh tokens, so if you have all the Kuriboh tokens on the field to destroy, that's any additional card to destroy up to your opponent. So with a field full of 5 Kuriboh tokens, that's 5 cards to destroy on your opponent's side of the field, with the 1-ofs being 1 copy of Berserker Crush and the 1 copy of Transcendent Wings. More or less good Wing Kuriboh plays, but not as consistent as some of the tribute tokens and setup we can do with cards like Skilled Brown Magician or just the 5-star Twilight to search out the original Kuriboh in the deck. We have to rely more on just opening up Wing Kuriboh and then the Flute of Summoning Kuriboh to then make use of these 1-ofs in the deck. For our generic spells, 1 copy of 1 for 1, 1 Monster Reborn, and then also the 1 Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is mostly meant to set up our Dystopia in the graveyard, Monster Reborn to grab back any resources we may need to use with any of our spells, and 1 for 1 can grab a good majority of all the different monsters we run in the deck. With the last of these spells and the rest of the main deck just being 2 copies of Pot of Prosperity. The card can get hit on the ban list, and there's plenty of generics that we run in the extract to be able to banish to then reveal and hopefully grab the needed card that we may need off of the top of the deck for any of our plays using this card also. Moving on now to the extract, running 2 copies of Relinquish Anima. This is going to be a replacement card for a good majority of spots that Link Kuriboh once took up in the deck. So 2 copies of this, and just another way to take your opponent's own cards if it's pointing at that monster on the field. So depending on where your opponent positioned that card on the field for you also. The 1 copy of Salmon Great Almirage, the 1 Lena the Light Charmer, the 1 Underclock Taker, the 1 SP Little Knight, and the 1 Nightmare Cerberus for a good number of the Link 2s, with the 1 IP to then be able to go into cards like Nightmare Unicorn, which with all the Kuriboh tokens, we can easily make a wide variety of Link monsters as well in the deck, aside from Anima, sadly, because you cannot use a token to summon it out, so you have to use your original Kuriboh monsters, with our Xyz being 1 Slacker Magician, the 1 Utopia Roots, the 1 Princess Sprite, the 1 Kikanagashi Fucho, the 1 Nightingale, and the Zeus to finish off the Xyz lineup in the extra deck as well. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, as mentioned before, the Skilled Brown Magician with your Flute of Summoning Kuriboh, or even any spell. If you have Foolish, Prosperity, Flute of Summoning Kuriboh, you have plenty of ways to build up the counter on this card. Once that counter is set, if you have your Search, and it's the only monster still on your side of the field, you can then use your 5-star Twilight to tribute this level 5 monster, because once again, you can either have it gain 1500 attack and increase its level by 1, which is what you'll use the 1 counter for after you use your other spell beforehand, tributing it, and then that can grab you your Kuriboh Brothers plus Kuriboh on the field for you then to have a resource of 5 different monsters in the field, whether you want to go into extract plays or make use of each individual Kuriboh Brothers play on the field. Also, if you go for the Foolish play to send Foolish Burial with your Dystopia the Despondent, then sent to the graveyard. If you have your Wing Kuriboh to summon out, you can then go for the Berserker Crush play, banishing the Dystopia the Despondent, and then become equal to the attack of that monster, so you can then swing with a Wing Kuriboh with 5,000 attack and 5,000 defense. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, very sad that other decks had to suffer because of some of the more meta relevance, with Kuriboh being one of those decks. But I still hope you all enjoyed the update. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.